As we've discussed, a teleologist focuses on two things: flourishing for herself and for her community, and the development and expression of the virtues. Last time we talked about Aquinas' views on eudaimonia, or flourishing, and today I want to talk to you about Aquinas' views on the virtues. In order to understand the connection between Aquinas' views on virtues and Aristotle's, we should go back to talk about the relationship between their views on eudaimonia, or flourishing. The difference between Aristotle and Aquinas on flourishing is this: that Aristotle does not believe in an afterlife. And so he believes that the flourishing that we can achieve as human beings is an earthly sort of flourishing that occurs in physical human communities here on earth. Now, Aquinas agrees that the very thing Aristotle talked about as flourishing is absolutely important and something we should pursue. It's just that we don't pursue it as the ultimate end or the ultimate telos, because we're made for an even greater end. That greater end is the vision of the divine essence. Now, when I reach the vision of the divine essence, I'm going to be united with God Himself. That means that my intellect is united with the mind of God, and my will is united with the will or the heart of God. That means I'm going to be united with truth itself and with goodness itself. As Aquinas pointed out in the sections on eudaimonia, this means that you and I, before we can enter into the vision of the divine essence, have to be absolutely transformed in every fiber of our being. We have to be made to be 100% excellent and perfect in the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act. So the kind of virtue that Aristotle talked about, practical wisdom, theoretical wisdom, ethicae or moral virtue, and all the different gradations of choices that we have to make well, Aquinas says, not only do we have to make these choices well and become good humanly speaking, but our destiny is to be as good as God. Certainly we are not God, but we are going to have the same character of God. We come to share in the divine nature. That is the ultimate promise for us. Now, note that the telos then, or the ultimate goal, or eudaimonia for Aquinas, is radically different from Aristotle's. It's much higher, it's more exalted, it demands more of us, and it involves the complete transformation of our being. Aristotle's version of eudaimonia is a wonderful approach to ethics. In fact, if the whole world lived in accordance with Aristotle, it would be a wonderful place to live. And yet, the kind of character or virtue that I could achieve on Aristotle's plan it pales in comparison with the kind of absolute perfection that Aquinas envisions for us, and that indeed he thinks Christian scripture envisions for us. So how does this impact specific virtues? Well, first of all, it's important to remember what the mean is according to Aristotle. According to Aristotle, the mean is that perfect place between excess and deficiency for promoting eudaimonia. So, when I give just the right amount of the right stuff to the right person in the right way with the right motivation and feeling the right sorts of emotions, I'm acting in a way that's designed perfectly to promote flourishing for me and for that person and for other people influenced by the decision. So that's the connection between eudaimonia and virtue. The mean is the perfect place for promoting eudaimonia. The mean is the choice that brings eudaimonia about. So, given that connection between eudaimonia and virtue, something should dawn on us. And what should dawn on us is, wow, we have very different views of eudaimonia between Aquinas and Aristotle. It probably follows, then, that the mean will fall in a different place between excess and deficiency. And if that was what you thought in that moment, you're absolutely right. Given that the ultimate goal of our actions is this exalted perfection in eternity for Aquinas, it follows that the mean compared to Aristotle's mean is going to be shifted. And in many cases, it'll be shifted towards one extreme or the other. Let me give you an example. Generosity is that perfect place between excess and deficiency. The excess being wastefulness, the deficiency being stinginess. And Aristotle would have us give the perfect amount, which means for Aristotle that we give enough that we promote flourishing for people in our community. But for Aristotle, we have to be sure to hold back a lot for ourselves so that we have the ability to flourish. And you'll remember that long list of attributes that we need to achieve in order to flourish according to Aristotle. We need moderate wealth. We need the resources to invest in creativity. So if you're a good violinist, you need to be able to rent or borrow or buy a violin. You need money to travel. Aristotle believes that if you're going to flourish, it's got to be in this lifetime, this 50, 70, 80, 100-year period of time that you get. Therefore, you should be giving your resources, but not too much, because if you give too much, you yourself will not be able to flourish. Now, compare this to a Christian view or Aquinas' view on generosity. It is true that if I give up too much of my resources, there's things I won't be able to achieve in this lifetime. And yet, from a Christian perspective, from Aquinas' perspective, I don't need to flourish in this lifetime. I'm never going to reach full flourishing in this lifetime. The focus instead is on ultimate flourishing, which happens in the vision of the divine essence. Therefore, the mean regarding generosity is shifted towards what Aristotle would call wastefulness. So if you had a Christian who's living in accordance with the mean according to Aquinas, Aristotle would look at that person and say, they're wasteful, they're missing the mean, they're giving too much of their time, too much of their money, too much of their skills and resources and energy. They're not spending enough on themselves. The ultimate vision for Aquinas is that we're going to become so perfect in our character that we will share the very nature of God. Well, we're not as concerned. We are concerned about this wonderful world that we live in, but not as concerned as an Aristotelian, because we don't see this world or life in this world as the ultimate end. And I'll give you another example about this. Let's say that I am about to win the lottery. Let's say I won the lottery, and next Wednesday I get $300 million. And you say to me this week, Dr. Kale, I need this money for surgery. I need to get the surgery done. They want this down payment. I need $3,000. What should I do? And I would say, let's go sell my car. I'll give you $3,000. Now, I wouldn't do that under normal circumstances, but I'm a week away from getting $300 million. So I'll walk to work for a week. I'm about to be super rich. The analogy here is that Christian believers have faith that there's going to be a resurrection of the body. And after the resurrection, we are going to be united with everything good. It's far greater inheritance that awaits us than $300 million. And life goes so quickly in comparison to eternity that it's just as if it were next Wednesday. So Christians know that we are going to receive an unfathomable inheritance in no time at all, and that is union with God. And so we can afford to be more giving, sacrifice more of our time than an Aristotelian would be willing to do. And that's not to say anything negative about Aristotle. It's just that the wise thing to do, if you believe that this is the only life in which we live, is to save a significant amount of resources for yourself. From an eternal perspective, from Aquinas' perspective, that's not as important. And so generosity from Aquinas' perspective then will involve more sacrifice, more giving. The mean is shifted towards what Aristotle would call the extreme.